What's up guys, Mason Wakefield here, and today I want to talk to you guys about 10 things that I wish I knew before I shot my first wedding. And this is going to be kind of a lot of content. Most of it's not gear related, and so that's kind of what I wanted to cater this to, is because the first wedding I shot, I remember I literally had like a camera that I just bought. I actually booked my first wedding when I only had a drone, and somebody booked me off of drone videos that I'd taken that were not very good. So what I wanted to go over today is just kind of some mostly non-gear related things that I wish I would have known going into my first wedding video. And hopefully it'll help you guys kind of know where to be, what to do, and like the kind of mindset to have, because it's really important to go into a wedding day with confidence, because people are gonna see your confidence and they're going to trust you based off of how confident you are in yourself. And so anyways, with that being said, let's hop into number one. So first of all, to start off, before you even show up to your wedding day, there's actually something that I want you guys to do, and that is have a phone call with your bride or your bride and groom. This is just something that I offer in my business, and the reason I do it is, number one, it puts people at ease because they feel like they know me a little bit better. So, you know, it might be 2 weeks out, whatever it may be, we'll have like a little FaceTime call or a phone call, and like we're kind of on the same page when I show up. So I'm not asking as much questions. We've already gone over the timeline. We already know what we're doing. And so the good thing with this is when you show up to a wedding day, you want to not only be confident that you know where to be, but you also want to be confident that you have enough time to do what you need to do. And you also want to have a good relationship and kind of flow with the bride and groom. You want them to trust you. And so that's like a simple one, but I feel like, at least in my early days of shooting, I always forgot, or not forgot, but like just didn't make time for that. It didn't seem as important. And the more I've done it, the more I realize how much people value that. So no matter what, I encourage you, make sure you have a phone call with them before the wedding to make sure you're on the same page. Number two is follow the bride. And this may sound simple, and that's what it's intended to be. I always tell my brides on the wedding day, I'm like, hey, look, girl, nothing happens without you. And that's the truth. Nothing will happen without her. And so my encouragement to you would be, make sure that you follow her wherever she goes. You know, if you're just following her, you're not gonna miss her getting into her dress. You're not gonna miss the first look. You're not gonna miss the ceremony. You won't miss the first dance. You won't miss her bridesmaid's reveal. All of this stuff is essential to a wedding video and to capturing, and it all includes her. There's only some times that I'll either send someone or go myself to the boys separately, and typically what I do is I have a second shooter and I'll just send them, because I don't want to miss anything, because realistically, let's all be honest here. The day is about the girl. Like it's a covenant, it's a big deal that they're getting married, but our focus is on the bride. And so if you're with her, you're never going to be wrong. So that's tip number two. Number three is probably pretty controversial in the wedding industry. I know at least with my friends it probably would be, but that is, a gimbal doesn't necessarily make something cinematic. So what do I mean by this? I feel like oftentimes as creators, we get caught in this cycle of thinking that gear is going to make our films better. And so I know at first for me, I thought gimbal equaled cinematic. So I would show up to my wedding, I'd have my gimbal on me, I'd make sure that everything was filmed on a gimbal, I'd get crazy cool shots in this like wild motion. I'd be running circles around brides with a gimbal, and would kind of get down to the editing and nothing would flow. I would have a bunch of cool gimbal shots, but it didn't necessarily feel like a cinematic story. It felt more like a highlight reel for what I could do with a gimbal. And it was less about the story and more about kind of the moves I could make. And so I would catch myself either being too dramatic in cases. So like couples standing still, they're having a first look, and like I'm doing a circle around them. And it just like kind of distracts from what's actually happening. And then also I became too reliant on it. And so I kind of neglected this storytelling side of things and focused on the cool shot side of things. And so actually I've been in a transition in my business of really trying to put this thing down it's still a tool and it's still utilized well. And I'd say the best time that I use it is during ceremonies. I love this thing for ceremonies. It really helps you capture what's actually happening. But I will say for sure that this is not going to make your videos automatically cinematic. So my recommendation would be, honestly, shoot handheld a lot of the time. Shoot handheld when it makes sense. If somebody's moving, walking, whatever, it feels more natural to be handheld. And then use Gimbal as a tool. Gimbal's a great tool and we're so lucky that we have them in packages this small. Just don't rely on it to make your videos cinematic. Number 4 on the list would be to capture authentically. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is make sure that you focus on the moments that happen rather than creating the moment that you want. I feel like I say this in a lot of my videos, and I say this to every videographer that I'm talking to or helping out, but what I've realized is it's so easy to come in with an idea of how things should go and what people should say and try to force that upon them. And then before you know it, they feel not like themselves. It's not authentic. What you're documenting is actually not real. And so I think people can typically tell, from my experience at least, people can tell when things aren't genuine. So my recommendation would be force less and document more. What I mean by this is when they're having their first look, don't be so quick to interrupt them and say, all right, let's like take a couple portraits. Instead, sit in that moment, let them talk to each other for a minute, and you'll probably get a lot of footage from that you end up using in your video more than you would if you made them do couple portraits. What people want is they want to remember their day how it was. And so my recommendation to you is just capture authentically. It takes the pressure off of you a little bit. All you have to do is be a good storyteller in post and use those different moments that happened to tell their full story of their day. So that's tip number 4. Number 5 is another one that could be controversial depending on who you're talking to. This is a little bit different than the gimbal one, but it is equipment related, and that is you don't have to have a drone to get good establishing shots. The reason I say this is when I first started, my first purchase ever, besides I didn't even have a camera yet, I just had a drone. And so that's how I started, and so I thought that was my thing. Like my storytelling was through drone. And there's people that make their living off of how good their drone videography is. So drones are a great tool again, but I don't want you to be stuck in this place of saying, I can't shoot a wedding yet, I don't have a gimbal, I don't have a drone. Like, you totally can. And I'll show you guys some shots right here, but like basically an establishing shot, typically for those of you that don't know, is kind of a wider, more storytelling side of things, kind of lets you know, okay, all of what you're about to see is happening here. So let's say it's the beginning of the day, they're getting their makeup done at a house. I'll show a wide shot of the house, maybe of the street, and then go inside, and you feel like, okay, all the action's happening inside, I get it. So my recommendation would be, if you don't have a drone, you don't have the money for a drone yet, but you're gonna shoot a wedding video, is be intentional about getting establishing shots with your camera. You can do that. And then number 6, to kind of piggyback off of what we just said, is know your focal lengths. I think that a lot of times as videographers, when we're new to it, we can get really excited about a new focal length and forget that it's really just a tool to help tell our story better. So I've done this plenty of times, so don't feel bad if you have, but I've used my 24mm and like gotten close to people, and then their faces look all distorted and kind of funky. And so basically there's certain times to use a certain focal length. So let's just give you an example. I like to kind of stay in the really 35 to 70 range throughout the entire day. Rarely do I go all the way down to 24mm. The reason is people look more natural and their faces look a little bit prettier when you're at a tighter focal length. So you can look this up online, and I'll add some photos here that kind of give you reference of what that can look like. But anywhere from like 24 to 70 is going to completely change the complexion of a face. So when I shoot 24, I'm shooting scenery, I'm shooting outside a house, I may be shooting like the reception, I may be getting one wide shot of the ceremony, things like that. When I'm shooting tight is usually when I'm closer to someone. So it sounds a little contradictory, but I actually usually walk myself closer and also shoot a little bit tighter. And what this does is it gives a little bit more cinematic feel. You get a little bit more bokeh and like contrast with your background. This also makes people's faces just look prettier. And so I'd recommend using anywhere from that 50 to 70 range, typically for like makeup, for first looks, for portraits, any moments that you have with the bride or the groom or both of them together. I usually use that tighter shot. So it's really just about knowing what's right. Like, don't go really close to somebody at 24 millimeters and then make their face look all funny. And so that's the important thing, is just know your focal lengths. Number 7 is something that I'll push on this channel over and over and over again. And that is encourage letters. Letters are such a big part of my workflow. And the reason that I do them is, as filmmakers, half of our job is sound. We have to make sure that we're telling a story that people are actually engaged in. Realistically speaking, if I were to show you a silent film, how long would you stay engaged? I remember watching them in film class in college. It was legitimately one of the more boring things I've ever had to do, is watch a film that was completely silent. And so my recommendation to you is, don't just overlay music over slow motion footage, plop it in there and give them a video. If all else fails, get some sort of audio, whether it's from the ceremony, or encourage your couples, please, to write letters to each other, because I promise you they will be thankful for it one day, but you'll also be thankful for it for your business, because your videos will actually be enjoyable for other people to watch. Number 8 is make family shots interesting. How do you do this? The best way to do this is, don't get all of your family shots when they're taking family photos. In fact, I never go to the family photo session. Usually that's like right after the ceremony or maybe right before. I actually always avoid that and go and get detail shots or establishing shots of my venue or whatever it may be. Reason being is, I want to be way more creative and authentic with what I'm doing. When you have family portraits and family photos together, what happens is everybody lines up in a line and they smile, they look at the camera, and that's it. What I want to do is, I want to make films that actually feel real. That feels kind of like a moving slideshow in a way. What we want to do is, we want to tell stories that feel a little bit more real. So my encouragement to you would be, as people are walking down the aisle, record them. That's a great replacement for maybe family photos. Another option is, they'll give hugs right after the ceremony. They may give hugs after a first dance or during a first dance. Whatever it may be, it is important to incorporate their families, don't get me wrong. But there's so many moments throughout the day where they do interact with their families that we don't necessarily just have to use one big bulk shot of everybody in it, makes it easier for us, whatever, it's just like one shot. No, we want our whole video to be interesting. And so my encouragement to you is, find moments where they're interacting with those family members that feels a little bit more authentic and a little bit less staged, like a moving slideshow. Number 9 is probably one of the most important things of wedding films, and sounds so simple but is really easy to mess up, and that is, make sure you get the first kiss. My recommendation is, don't do anything risky during the ceremony. So, for example, sometimes I will like to get side shots of the aisles, or I'll like to get, just different angles of a ceremony. But I will say, there has been a couple times where I've been really close to actually missing the first kiss because I was too worried about getting detail shots that I might have not even used in my final video. And so what I would encourage is, you can kind of get a sense of when the end is coming. And so once we start getting like through those vows a little bit closer, maybe they're praying, whatever it may be, I would encourage you to just go ahead and move wherever you want to shoot it, but go ahead and move to the middle aisle. And that's what I do, at least. And just make sure you get that shot. Like, I promise you won't regret maybe not getting 2 extra detail shots and then like nailing the first kiss. You'd rather nail the first kiss, of course. Another way to help with that, just a little supplement, is I always have a camera on a tripod rolling in the back and with a pretty tight focal length. I have a 100 to 400 Sigma that's really great. And what that gives me is backup and safety. So although I want my shot, I don't necessarily completely mess up the film if I don't get it. So that's just my encouragement is, number one, redundancy is important, and number two, I just don't like take any crazy risks. It's not really worth it in the long run. And then number 10 is my encouragement would be to shoot the wedding you want to book in the future. And so what I mean by that is when I go into a wedding, I shoot it how I would like somebody to book me in the future. So for example, right now, something I'm promoting is I want this it's like this 3-day coverage love story film. It's super in-depth film process. We get creative. We have like separate days outside of the wedding day to tell their story. We are really intentional with how we write letters. We're really intentional with how we shoot and the creative atmosphere that we create together. And so I haven't had anybody book that package yet. Actually, I lied. Somebody just booked for the first time that package this morning. But when I had not had anybody book that package yet, what I did was I looked at all of the people that had already booked me and paid me, and I said, okay, there's this one couple that's super cute. They're gonna be super fun to do this with. She has experience in front of a camera, he does as well. And they're getting married in a location that I really would love to shoot in the future. And so what I decided to do is I decided to basically, they're paying half the price I would want to charge eventually for this package. And I'm giving it all to them for free. And even though they're getting it for free, basically, it's not gonna be without gain for me, because you have to look at it from the perspective of what weddings do I want to shoot. If I'm just shooting the same old wedding videos that I've done for the past 3 years, then nobody new is gonna book me. But if I start shooting the wedding films that I would like somebody to book me for higher money, for more creative ideas, a little bit wilder locations, whatever it may be, then once people see that, they have proof, they have evidence. Okay, he can do this. I do want to book him. And so another thing that I did is I gave somebody a free wedding video last summer. She had a decent following on Instagram, and I thought that it would help my business in the long run, and it has booked me 3 or 4 weddings since then. So my encouragement to you in that is just be smart about how you shoot your weddings. Don't shortchange people. It's not gonna do anything good for you or for them. If you give them more than they actually paid for, it'll benefit you in the long run, and your couples will be way happier with you. So that wraps up our top 10 things that I wish I knew before I shot my first wedding video. I hope that as you go into your first wedding video, whether it's just now or maybe you're a few wedding videos in and just need some more tips, I hope that this helped you. My encouragement to you is, above all else, have fun, shoot things that you enjoy creating, and the rest will kind of flow as it comes along and as you spend more time and more years in the industry. That being said, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. That would be amazing, helps me out a lot. And as always, it's been a blast. Just hope you guys learned something. Peace out.